make one 18cm 7-inch pie, which will serve about 4, you'll need 675 grams, 1.5 pounds, of fresh pumpkin, 250 grams, 9 ounces, of sweet short crust pastry, 2 large eggs, 90 ml, 3 fluid ounces, of double cream, 75 grams, 3 ounces, of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of ground ginger, and about 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. And for the maple cream, 240 ml, that's 8 fluid ounces, of double or whipping cream, and about 1.5 tablespoons of maple syrup. To start, you need to cook the pumpkin so that you can make it into a puree. Now, a lot of people roast pumpkin, but it takes about 40 minutes. So I'm going to do this in a different way. I'm going to boil it. And what I've done is I've cut the pumpkin up into wedges, having first washed the skins very well, remove the seeds and the stringy bits, and then simply pop into a saucepan of water, bring it to the boil, and that will actually cook in about 15 minutes as opposed to the 40 minutes roasting. And you can make a tasty snack with the seeds. Simply separate them out from the pulp, give them a rinse under cold running water, and then dry them off on kitchen paper. Then simply coat with a little oil and roast in the oven for 10 to 20 minutes at about 140 centigrade, 275 Fahrenheit, that's gas mark 1. And you can even add some seasonings like cayenne pepper. After about 15 minutes, just check whether the pumpkin is soft all the way through by pushing a knife through. And you'll know when it's done because not only will it go through the flesh very easily, but it'll go through the skin pretty easily too. It may take a little longer depending on how large a pumpkin you were using. But once it's done, remove from the pan with a slotted spoon, shaking off as much water as you can, and transfer to a large plate. And then allow that to cool for about 15 or 20 minutes. So whilst the pumpkin is cooling down, you can get on with making the pastry case. You need to preheat your oven to 190 centigrade, that's 375 Fahrenheit, gas mark 5, and roll the pastry out quite thinly, about 6 millimeters, that's 1/4 inch, and make sure it's at least 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch wider than your tin, because it's going to have to go up the sides. So simply take the pastry and roll it over your rolling pin, and then place it over the tin. And very gently just start to fit it down into your tin. Remove the excess pastry from the edges. Prick the base several times with the tines of a fork. And then line it with some parchment paper. Fill with baking beans. You can use any sort of beans for this. And in actual fact, you can just keep reusing them as I do. And then you need to bake that in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes until it's just beginning to set. While the pastry case is baking, you can get on with making the filling. Now you need to remove all the flesh from the cooked pumpkin. It's easier to do it with a small sharp knife. I've done most of mine here, I'll just finish it off. And then this needs to be pureed. Let's just get rid of all this skin, which can be thrown away. Now you can process it into a puree in a food processor or blender, or if you haven't got one you can pass it through a sieve even. But I am going to make it into a puree directly in the bowl in which I'm going to make the filling, and I'm going to use my trusty hand blender again. So just puree that up until it's really smooth. So I have my lovely smooth pumpkin puree, and basically all that remains is to add the eggs, the sugar, the cream, and all the spices: cinnamon, ginger, cloves. And then give that a good mixing until it's all well incorporated. I'm actually going to go in with a whisk here. It is actually quite liquid, but don't worry about that because the eggs will make it set. Once your case has been cooking in its baking time, remove the beans from the pastry case and then simply pour in the filling mixture. Bake in the oven, which should still be at 190 centigrade, that's 375 Fahrenheit, gas mark 5, for 35 to 40 minutes, until just set. To make the maple cream, simply whisk the cream until it's very thick. Add the maple syrup, about 1½ tablespoons, but you can add more or less. And then fold in. Once that's well blended, just chill until you're ready to serve. Pumpkin pie with delicious maple cream.